Everywhere I look, everyone seems to be focusing on what's wrong with the world.
Two shooters were initially believed involved in the mass shooting.
ISIS has now claimed responsibility for today's deadly terror attack.
Initially reported as a 7.9 quake, it was upgraded.
The worst outbreak of the deadly Ebola virus. Police believe the attack may have been a hate crime.
On this podcast, we choose to focus on the good.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
I can tell you from experience, the effect you have on others is the most valuable currency there is.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Many times when it appears that something is happening to you, it is always happening for you.
Because I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
Every single one of us makes a difference every single day.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Focus on the Good podcast. I'm so excited that you are back and here with me today and ready for your weekly dose of positivity. I'm really excited to be back. I just had an absolutely amazing week. My wife and I took a vacation out to Florida. We went to Disney World and it was just absolutely magical. I am a huge fan of Disney and Disneyland, and this was my first trip to Disney World. And it was incredible. It was just, the only thing I can say was absolutely magical. As a part of being a big fan of Disney, I'm really a big fan of Walt Disney himself. I've read several biographies of him and am kind of obsessive over him just because I think that he is someone that has done so much. He's done so many great things, and he took his creativity and took nothing and turned it into something great. He's also an example of an absolutely amazing American dream story where he failed and failed and failed and failed and then finally succeeded. He never gave up. He kept going no matter what. I love that quote by Walt Disney that all of our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them. We must do something about them. We can't just sit around. We can't just wait. We have to do something about our dreams. I think that is so cool. While we were at Disney World, we went to Epcot, and in Epcot there's this show called The American Adventure. And this show is hosted by an animatronic, Ben Franklin and Mark Twain. And this show was really incredible. It tells the whole history of America and talks about some really amazing people that have done great things throughout the history of America. And towards the end of the show, Mark Twain says to Ben Franklin, "I think the founding fathers never dreamed of an America like this." And Ben Franklin says, "Of course not. We weren't dreamers. We were visionaries." And when I heard that, I immediately thought that was such a cool statement. Because they weren't just dreamers, they were doers. I think the difference between a dream and a vision is that a vision is a dream with a purpose. It's a dream that you're actually doing something about. And that it's not about dreaming. It's not about dreaming. Lots of people have dreams, but very few people do anything about those dreams. I just wanted to share that with you today. When I saw that, I immediately thought, I need to share that on my podcast. I need to share that with the Focus on the Good community because it's so true. If there's something that you want to do, don't just dream about it. Actually do something about it. Start today. Do something small. You don't have to do everything all at once because it's not going to happen all at once. But if you just take small steps towards something, you can turn your dreams into your reality. Now, this week on the podcast, instead of having a guest, I'm going to be talking about a subject. And I said that on the first episode, that sometimes I'm going to have a guest and sometimes it's going to be topic-driven. So today I decided that this was going to be a topic-driven episode and that what we're going to talk about is the concept of focusing on the good. Because I realized that even though that's what this show is called, and I interview people and I talk about how important it is to have a positive attitude and talk about their experiences, what I realize is I haven't talked that much about this philosophy and what it means to focus on the good and why it's so important. I ask all the guests why they think it's important to focus on the good. So I want to share why I think it's important to focus on the good. So when I was 9 years old, I had a friend named Winston who lived across the street from me. And one day Winston came over, and this day he had a golf ball in his hand. He came into the backyard, and he held the golf ball up right next to his face. He was shaking it around, and he looked at me. He was just a few feet away from me, and he says, "Hey, Jake, I'm going to hit you in the head with this golf ball." And I'm thinking, this is a terrible game. I don't like this game. What are you doing? And he says it again. "I'm going to hit you in the head with this golf ball." Story's not very long. He reaches back, he throws the golf ball as hard as he can, and he hits me right between the eyes. And no joke, I am knocked out on the ground, completely passed out. And I woke up probably 5 minutes later. I woke up on my couch. My dad was there. My brother was there. Winston had fled the scene of the crime. He did not want to be there when I woke up. And, recently I talked to my brother about this, and he said that he remembered that the bump on my head was so big that it was like the golf ball was actually imprinted on my skull, or there was a golf ball underneath my skin trying to get out. And you could even see those dimples that are in a golf ball. You could see those on my head. And there is a point to this story. Winston and I, we remained friends. We stayed friends all through high school. And one day, I don't know, I think we were about 18, maybe 17 or 18. I was talking to him and I asked him if he remembered the time that he hit me in the head with the golf ball. And he said, "Yeah, I remember that." And I said, "Why on earth did you do that? What were you thinking?" I really just wanted to know what was going on in his head. It's something that happened so long ago. Anyone who has kids knows that, sometimes kids do things that are just really ridiculous. And I wanted to know what he was thinking, what was going on in his head. And he said, "You know what? I actually didn't want to hit you. I just wanted to scare you. I wanted to throw it right next to your head. I wanted to throw it right next to your head, but I was focusing so hard on not hitting you in the head that, of course, I hit you in the head." And at first I was thinking, how would this even happen? And he said, "Well, look, I was just staring at your head, staring at where I didn't want it to go, and saying, throw it over there. Don't hit him in the head. Don't hit him in the head. Don't hit him in the head." And of course, that's where the ball went. And what I realized from this is whatever you focus on, you're going to see more of. Or whatever you focus on, that's probably what you're going to get. And anyone who plays sports knows you got to keep your eye on the target. You can't be looking at a batter and saying, "Don't hit the batter." You can't be saying, "Don't hit him." You got to be looking in the strike zone where you want it to go. I played baseball all growing up, and when you have a ball coming to you, you can't say, "Don't miss it, don't miss it, don't miss it." You got to be saying, "I want to make this play. Hit the ball to me so I can make this play." You got to be focusing on what you want and not what you don't want. Because when you focus on what you don't want, that's usually all you see. That's usually all we see. But if you focus on the good, you're going to find more of it. But if all we do is focus on the bad, that's all we're going to see, and that's all we're going to find. So if you focus on the good within yourself, you're going to find more of it. If you focus on the good within others, you're going to find more of it. If you focus on the good within your community and within the world, you're going to find more of it. But if all you do is look for the bad, then that's all you're going to find. Because what's wrong is out there. Tony Robbins says, "What's wrong is always available, but so is what's right." And I think that is such a true statement because, it's true. There are bad things going on in the world. There's a lot of bad things going on in the world. But when we focus on them, that's all that we see. And I decided for myself that doesn't help me in any way. It doesn't help me to just be focusing on the negative, because when you focus on the negative, you start seeing only those things. You start living in a place of fear, and you start thinking that the whole world is against you, and you close yourself off to so many possibilities. So what's wrong? It's always out there. But there's so much that is right in the world if we just focus on those things. There's so much that's right. And so I say let's focus on what's right, because whatever we focus on is going to grow. It's said that where your focus goes, energy flows. Because whatever you're focusing on, that's going to expand and that's going to grow more and more and more and more. And this is not just about positive thinking. This isn't just about having great stories and hearing great things and having a positive attitude. The truth is that sometimes life is really hard. I completely understand that. Over the last couple years, this is something I'll probably get into on the podcast a little bit later, but I've had some pretty big trials in my life recently, and I understand. Sometimes life is really hard. But what we need to do is figure out, how can I grow from this experience? How can I become better on the other side of this? What is the good news? One time I was going through a really hard time, and I was talking to a friend of mine, my friend Preston, and after I explained the whole situation to him, he said, "Okay, what's the good news?" I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "What's the good news? There's always good news." And I had to figure it out. How is this situation good? How is this situation going to help me? And that really helped me through that. And that's something I think about all the time. Anytime I go through a hard time, I say, what's the good news? And sometimes all the good news is that on the end of this, I'm going to be a better person. But if you think about it, I'm an inspirational speaker for my profession, so that's something I'm really into. I love inspirational stories. I love watching inspirational movies, reading inspirational books, seeing inspirational speakers. I love this kind of stuff. But what I've seen throughout all of it, any inspirational story you hear has 3 parts. I was once here in this, whatever it was, a dark place, a bad place, or just not where I am today. I was once here. That's part 1. Part 2 is I went through a really hard time. And then part 3 is I came out a better person because of it. But you can't come out a better person without going through that hard time first. You can't get stronger without going through the exercise. You can't get more fit without going to the gym. You have to do the exercise. You have to go through the challenge. You have to go through the hard part. Because without that, you're not going to grow. I love the movie League of Their Own. And in that movie, Gina Davis is talking to Tom Hanks' character, and she says it's just too hard. And Tom Hanks says, of course it's hard. It's the hard that makes it great. If it wasn't hard, everyone would do it. See, the point is that it is the hard that makes it great. A couple episodes ago, we had John Beatty on the show, and he talked about climbing Mount Everest. That is extremely impressive, and it is amazing. But what makes it great is because it was so hard. No one is impressed when I say that this morning I went on a walk around the block to do my exercise. No one's impressed by that because it's nothing special. It's not hard. But climbing Mount Everest, it's the hard that makes it great. So remember that when you go through a hard time, when you're going through a tough time, it's the hard that makes it great. And it's the hard that's going to make you great. So anytime you're going through a challenge, think about, what's the good news? How am I going to become better on the other side of this? Anytime you have a goal that you're trying to reach, think about, what am I going to gain from reaching this goal? How am I going to be better because I've reached this goal? Don't think about how hard it is day in and day out. I've been on a big weight loss journey, down 50 pounds through DDP Yoga. Thank you very much, Diamond Dallas Page from episode 1. If you haven't listened to that, check that out. But I have to work on this every single day. I'm trying to get my last 20 pounds off. And I've hit quite a plateau over the last few months. It's been really tough. But recently I've started to pick up traction again. And it's because I went back to my focus of, what am I going to gain from this? What am I going to gain on the other side of this? Not thinking about how hard it is day in and day out to eat the way that I need to eat. I got to think about, what am I going to be on the other side? What's the good news? So whatever it is that you're going through, whether it's a goal you're trying to achieve or a hard time that you're going through, always, always, always think about, what can I gain from this? Where is the good news? So I hope that you choose to focus on the good, because for me, it has completely changed my life. This is a philosophy that can help us to improve our lives in every single way, help us to do so much more and reach such higher heights and get through anything that we could possibly go through. So I choose to focus on the good, and I hope you will too.